Do you enter your parenting questions into Google? Are you unsure of which parenting advice to trust? And do you second guess your parenting decisions? So the big question is this: how do we navigate through the mountain of overwhelming, often contradictory, and sometimes false parenting information we find online? What parenting information should you believe and apply, and what should you reject? That is the big question, and in this podcast, we will help you understand what underlies your child's behavior and explain how to react in a way that favors your child's optimal development. I'm Alexandra Scherzer, and welcome to the Wise Parenting Podcast. We understand how overwhelming finding good and valid parenting information can be. And we also understand how confusing it can be to know how to implement it. In fact, this is why we started the Wise Parenting Podcast, our social media accounts with the handle Dr. Solomon's Wisdom and the Wise Parenting Academy. The truth is that when I became a parent, I had many more questions than I expected to have. You may be able to relate to this. I think it's safe to say that most of us want our kids to grow up to be self-confident, successful, happy, easy to get along with, intelligent, assertive, and have positive relationships. And most of us want to have a harmonious family life with positive relationships, both with our child's other parent and with our kids. But here's the thing. When you don't feel confident about which parenting information to apply and which to reject, it becomes very difficult to reach these goals that you want for your family. And parenting can start to feel confusing, frustrating, overwhelming, and even disappointing. So after talking to my mom extensively about how confusing it can be to be a successful parent today, with dozens of online platforms serving up parenting information 24/7, and most often it not coming from professionals in child development, we set out with one goal in mind. Our goal is to help parents feel clearer, more at ease, and more confident with their parenting decisions so that they can give their child the best shot at being his or her best self. And this is what today's episode is about, a concrete tool that we developed to help you work through your parenting challenges, the Wise Parenting Formula. Now, before we get into it, I want to bring up something that I've actually never come across in all the online parenting information that I've read and sifted through. That is the concept of an inner parent. So what is an inner parent? Everyone has an inner parent who is telling them to raise their child the way they were raised, and it's very difficult to change this behavior. The way you were raised leaves a lasting impression on you, sometimes more so than you realize. And the reason I bring this up is because many parents struggle, whether they know it or not, with some of the relatively new scientifically based parenting information that tells them to raise their children differently from the way they were raised. It's not easy for any parent to go against their own inner parent. And as I just mentioned, this isn't a concept that's often talked about, and we are aware of this. In fact, your own inner parent plays a huge role in your parenting behavior and your parenting decisions. And so for many parents, simply knowing that they should or should not do something isn't sufficient. It just isn't enough to help some parents to change to get onto a better path. So you will hear toward the end of this episode that knowing how to execute the information that is solidly backed by scientific research in child development is just as important as knowing what to do. So now on to the Wise Parenting Formula. It's an acronym for WISE, W-I-S-E. It stands for 4 areas that you can work through one at a time in order for you to respond to your child in a way that will have positive, immediate, and long-term consequences. This formula is intended for you to be able to apply it to a challenging situation at home and come out feeling clearer and more confident about what to do. So let's begin. W. It stands for understanding who you're working with. who your child is.
Hi, I'm Dr. Solomon. In wise parenting, we should always look to our child first to try to truly understand and accept who he or she is. The best way to get positive results from your parenting and your child's behavior is to honestly accept who they are and work with that in how you respond to your child. I'll repeat this because it's so important and the foundation to wise parenting. Start by looking at who your child truly is from an inborn point of view. Doing that will help you to find the next right steps to getting where you want to be. So here's a bit more of an explanation for you. Every baby is born with some traits that are unchangeable and other traits that can be modified by the environment that she lives in. Many parents don't realize that their infant is telling them a lot about their inborn traits. Babies do this by how they initially eat, sleep, and cry. Initially, your baby either eats well or doesn't. Your baby either sleeps well or doesn't. Your baby either cries a lot or doesn't. Looking at how your child handles eating, sleeping, and crying gives you insight as to how your child will handle different situations she will find herself as she grows up. Imagine a spectrum that ranges from easy to difficult. Your child lies somewhere on this line. Babies who feed easily, cry little, and fall asleep easily are called easy babies. They are simply born that way. I'm saying easy because this is the actual category of type of child found in the scientific literature. That doesn't mean that parents have an easy time raising them. It just means that they will adapt to all kinds of situations, including your parenting, more easily than other children will. Keep in mind that it is a spectrum ranging from very easy to very difficult. Your child may be easier or more difficult in different areas. No child is 100% anything. Looking at who they were as an infant can give you a better understanding of who they are today, why they behave the way they do, why they react the way they do, and how best to get through to them. The more successfully you can match up your parenting to who your child is, the more easily she will go through all the developmental stages. If you have a difficult baby, I want you to know that how you choose to parent can have positive long-term effects on her behavior. There are, however, no quick solutions to helping your difficult baby become less difficult. The best thing you can do as a parent is to acknowledge and accept that you have a somewhat difficult child and learn some best practices to work with who she is. This is why successful and wise parenting is so difficult. You have zero control over who your baby is when she is born, her inborn traits, her genes. The more difficult your baby is, the more patience you will need with her, the more adaptable you will need to be with her, the more flexible you will have to be in your behavior. As you will hear in the next parts of the WISE formula, how to achieve the most positive results will depend heavily on the genes your child's inherited and therefore who they are. This is why it is the first part of the formula.
So now on to the I of the WISE parenting formula. I stands for understanding what's going on in your child, in her brain and development.
Yes. Understanding what's happening in your child's brain is extremely pertinent to how you choose to parent. What is important for parents to realize is that what's happening in their child's brain when they're very young is strongly linked to the personality they will have at age 40. It may be hard to believe, but when you look at your friend and think, why can't he make a decision? Or, why does she always have to be right? You're seeing how his or her brain, in part, reacted to the way he or she was parented when they were very young. So back to your young child and her brain. Your young child's brain develops in a certain sequence over time. Knowing about and understanding this sequence is extremely helpful, some would argue essential. The most successful parenting occurs when you are able to match up your parenting choices to who your child is, as we saw in the W of the WISE parenting formula, but also when parents are able to match their parenting to their child's developmental stage. This means that your parenting choices and behavior are tailored to reasonable expectations of your child at each point in time. Knowing and understanding what's going on in your child's brain, for example, how your 1-year-old processes the world around her, or why your 2-year-old has to say no, is a huge advantage to you as you make your parenting decisions. If you understand how your child's brain helps her to deal with the world around her, it will help you to have the right expectations of her and make wiser parenting decisions as she develops from one stage to the next. Believe it or not, your parenting is contributing to forming your child's brain. And knowing that your child's brain is the foundation for her adult brain will help you to be more patient, empathetic, and understanding during some trying times. It will also help you to have more confidence so that when your inner parent wants to react differently from how you know you should, or when you are ready to give in to the many pressures around you to change your parenting ways, you will be able to resist and stay on course in order to give your child the best shot at being his or her best self.
S stands for being self-aware, aware of what you're doing, why you're doing it, and the effects of what you're doing.
Yes, the importance of being self-aware. There are 2 aspects to the S in self-aware in our formula. The first has to do with modeling. What this means is that parents set an example for their children as to how to behave. At any point through modeling, parents are showing their children how to handle stress, disappointment, frustration, anger, joy, enthusiasm, excitement, etc. This is another reason why successful and wise parenting is so challenging. You are always being watched, and so if you would like to see certain behaviors in your child, you have to model them consistently. Depending on who you are and what these behaviors are, this may be in itself quite difficult because it may be requiring that you behave in a way that doesn't come naturally to you.
And so what's the second aspect?
The second aspect is far more complicated and something that I've noticed parents frequently overlook. It is that the child's behavior does not stand alone. In my years of helping families, most parents looked at their child's behavior and were pleased or displeased with it as an independent event. The truth is that your child's behavior is very often in interaction with and or a reaction to your behavior. So if you want to see a change in your child's behavior, the chances are very high that you have to change your own. Another point is that your child is continually growing and changing, which requires you to constantly have to adapt, and so on. As an aside, if you're a family with more than one child, going back to the W in wise parenting and knowing who each of your children is, being self-aware will help you to respond better to each of their individual needs. And being able to do this will make for a far more harmonious family life. This is easy for me to say, but may be difficult for you to do. It means, if necessary, intentionally being a different parent to each child. Intentionally is the key word here, because you can also parent each child differently, unaware that your behavior is in fact changing and, unfortunately, sometimes leading to negative outcomes. As always, one of our goals is to help you feel confident, more confident in your parenting decisions. Self-awareness gives you greater confidence in your parenting by knowing that you are in control of the situation. Simply pinpointing and acknowledging the sources of your negative feelings and reactions helps you to reduce them. Self-awareness is one of the keys to giving your child the best shot at being his or her best self.
So now on to the E of the WISE parenting formula. It stands for executing the best parenting practices for your family based on scientific information.
We come to the end of the acronym, and we chose E for execution to emphasize the importance of putting your knowledge to work. The scientific literature today emphasizes patience, kindness, flexibility, empathy, understanding, and guidance in raising children. First, knowing and accepting who your child is. Second, understanding what's going on in her brain developmentally. And third, being self-aware of your own behavior and reactions are all necessary in order for you to understand why and how to execute and apply the best practices with your child. If and when you work through W, I, and S in a given situation and you're ready to execute, I urge you to be careful to check your sources of information. As we said at the top of the episode, parents today are bombarded with parenting information, some of it valid and some of it not. And with the intense pressure for parents to get it right, I understand how many can be led down the wrong path.
This now wraps up our in-depth look at the WISE parenting formula. As I mentioned at the top of the episode, our goal here on the WISE Parenting Podcast, on social media with Dr. Solomon's Wisdom, and in our WISE Parenting Academy, is to help parents feel clearer, more at ease, and more confident with their parenting decisions. There's so much talk today about positive parenting, conscious parenting, gentle parenting, etc. But WISE parenting is truly something concrete. It's based on our formula that is designed with one goal in mind: to help you work through various difficult situations and learn more about what's involved in giving your child the best shot at being his or her best self. Your child's behavior, good or bad, is a result of many factors, including the genes she was born with, her physical and cognitive abilities and limitations based on how her brain is developing, and her interaction with you, your interaction with her. WISE parenting takes all of these factors into account, and the answers we give you to common parenting concerns are solidly based on a body of research that is agreed upon by the scientific community in the area of child development, not on 1 or 2 articles published, and not on someone's opinion. Be sure to listen back to the following episodes. They will help you better apply the WISE parenting formula when you're faced with a parenting challenge. The first is our bonus episode on how your child's inborn characteristics affect your child and your parenting. This episode is slotted in between episodes 10 and 11. Then episodes 6, 7, and 8. We go over why it's important to know what your parenting style is and how, along with inborn temperament and genes, each style produces a different kind of child and eventual adult. Then, in episode 13, we talk about attachment. We explain what it is and what it isn't, because there's a lot of misinformation floating around on the topic. And we also explain why you should know more about it. Also, be sure to check out episode 16, where we give an overview of the crucial stages your child will go through from birth to about 5 years old. Understanding what's going on in your child's brain during these early years can be incredibly helpful in your feeling more at ease with your parenting. And finally, be sure to listen back to episode 22, where we talk about emotional availability. We talk about what it is and why you should know about it. We hope that you found today's podcast helpful. Come say hi on social. Our Facebook and Instagram accounts are at Dr. Solomon's Wisdom, all one word. You can subscribe to the WISE Parenting Podcast on any podcast app, including Spotify, the Apple and Google podcast apps, or wherever you listen. Parenting advice keeps changing on us, depending on what you read and who you listen to. This is making parents feel like they're doing a bad job. And worst of all, many parents today don't know who to trust for what is probably the most important job they'll ever have. So if you're the parent of a young child and you would like to feel clearer, more confident, and more at ease about your parenting decisions, then the Wise Parenting Academy can help you get there. With on-demand access to foundation lectures and seminars in digital, print, and audio, as well as exclusive one-on-one guidance from Dr. Solomon, the Wise Parenting Academy is the perfect next step to building the best long-term outcomes for your child. Come check us out at thewiseparentingacademy.com. Thank you for listening, and we hope you will join us again.